Have you ever wondered what it would be like to feel steady and confident in your parenting? Do you ever think about how to truly savor these precious years with your growing people? And perhaps most importantly, do you dream of creating connected relationships that endure beyond childhood? I'm Carrie Conti, and I've spent the last 2 decades guiding, supporting, and inspiring parents to know and trust themselves deeply. And as a result, there are thousands of parents all over the world who feel skillfully equipped, personally fulfilled, and authentically connected with their people in all phases of development. Join me, along with my friend and collaborator, Kristen Manieri, as we explore what it means to not parent. Let's get untangling.
So, Carrie, we are back again. We're going to be having 4 awesome conversations about untangling technology. And I have to say, when you emailed me and suggested this, I was a full body yes for this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
me too, because this is up for people. This is up in my own life. This is up with my clients. I know this is up for you. It's the work of modern parenting, I like to say.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because my very first question was to ask you, what are you seeing out there? Because I know in my experience, this is a hot button, front burner issue in our family. And I have a sense that it's like that for a lot of other families as well. But you're kind of in the front lines of hearing like what's going on with littles and middles and, teens. What are you hearing out there in terms of like this massive tangling of technology?
Yeah, I think it's what people expect. It's the, when can they have these devices? How much? What's it doing to their brains? What's it doing to, their like social interactions? I haven't addressed this specific topics. I've done courses around this, boundaries and technology, before, but not since COVID. And so what I think is fascinating is how integrated in a deeper way the technology became, and TikTok didn't even exist when I was talking about this before. So, in a matter of 4 years, 3 since COVID, and then a year before that, since I've been talking about this, it does feel like the landscape is changed and the volume knob has turned up. And so one of the reasons that I love digging into this is because to me, it just feels like this opportunity for my 2 favorite things, which are self-awareness and clarity. And that's where this all starts, because as I say often, there is no right way to do family life. And I'll say the same thing about technology. There's no prescription, but there is a need for us as humans to really pull back and get the perspective on this so that we're navigating it with awareness, with consciousness, with thought, because it doesn't go away. It doesn't turn off. It doesn't have its own limits. And so to me, that's one of the reasons why this is so up and so big for families, because it's a deluge in a way that we've not really experienced before in human history.
Yeah, I really do see that one of the reasons why it's so tangled up and very triggering is that, and we talked about this a lot in our last 8-part series, is, as you said, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of unknown. And I think a lot of, maybe I'll say it, shame too, about we adults, we the parents, our behavior around technology, our inability to hold boundaries that we set for ourselves, our tendency or inclination to like to use technology as a little bit of a, hold up air quotes, babysitter, who hasn't gotten a reprieve from their kids for 5 or 10 or whatever minutes by handing them a device. So is part of the fact that this is so hard, I wonder if you would speak a little bit to just how triggering it is for all of us. This is such a hot button issue.
Yeah. And that's where the knots come in. It is so triggering because there's times when you want to use it, and in a perfect world, I think parents would feel a lot calmer if they used it and the little people went with it when the parent wanted them to. And then the minute a parent said, all right, you're done, they moved away from it. But it doesn't work that simply because it's compelling and there's an element of dysregulation around it. And so even when you set those limits, there can be a lot of pushback because the young person's getting triggered and it's like, wait, I'm doing this thing. I'm focused. I'm enjoying something. I'm engaged. And you're now telling me I've got to stop. Like, I don't even think us adults can even imagine how dysregulating that is, because it's like us being focused on a project that we're doing. And then all of a sudden somebody comes in a loud voice without even always connecting and just says, I'm frustrated. So you need to stop this thing. And you might even not even say it, but your voice might sound that way. And so I think that's where a lot of the tangle happens, is there's a lot of reactivity on both sides happening around the technology and the putting the boundaries on it, and the fact that we just don't always give ourselves as the adult people the space and time to really get clear. So our boundaries might be very wiggly and wobbly. And as you know full well, and anybody listening, they can sense that. The young people know, it's like they sense fear, they sense ambivalence, they sense, a sense of like, I don't want you doing that. And it's like, ooh, you don't want me doing that? Okay, cool. I'm going to dig my heels in a little bit because that's what I'm sensing. So this is a tangly issue. And yet I do think that the tools that I teach and the experiences that I can offer people can slow it down and bring perspective and allow for some of a new awareness that can allow you at least to have some tools around sorting it out. And to me, that's it, because there's not going to be, what I like to say is you're not going to necessarily be able to stay on top of the latest technology with your kids. Like, it's moving so fast and they're in some ways pre-wired for it in ways that we're not, because it's just part of their native tongue in a way that it wasn't for many parents. Some are getting there, but we're still in a point where, you and your peers and people in their 30s, it wasn't cell phones. I mean, that didn't happen until 2007, the iPhone specifically. So what I think this is really giving people is this mandate, or maybe that's too harsh a word, but an offering, an opportunity to like step back and go, okay, we know what this is. So how do we want to use it? Because it's my modeling and my guiding of these young people around the humanity within themselves. That's really what I'm responsible for while they move forward with the technology that I may or may not have a relationship with.
Yeah, and I'll say a few other things that tangle it up as well is the fact that, and you pointed to this just a few moments ago, is that it's kind of the blind leading the blind. I did not have a childhood where I had a screen, right? Like you said, 2007, I don't think I got my first iPhone until probably 2009. I was a late adopter, but I don't have, I had friendships when I was a kid. So I learned a little bit about navigating, friend groups and disappointment and not getting along with a teacher. Like I have picked up some experience over the years, over my childhood, that allows me to have some sense of guidance or direction, so that when my kids get there, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been there. Like I've got some intel. Not so with technology. Right. I came home and watched maybe a half hour of after school television, right? Like that was my technology. So there's that part of it as well. I think the other part of it is that every parent seems to be doing things differently. And we all have that kid that comes home and says, but so-and-so has a phone, but so-and-so is allowed to be on Snapchat. So that tangles things up. And I think the third thing I was thinking about is that when we all have had a kid, dive deep into Lego or Play-Doh or an art project, and they are just sucked right in. They are like in flow. They do not want to stop what they're doing. Well, that Lego, Play-Doh, whatever isn't designed to keep them there.
Right.
It isn't, almost a sentient being to a certain extent, the way that AI works now. What we're faced with as parents is that this technology is designed to keep them in, to make them go longer and make them go deeper. And us too, right?
Yep,
We've
exactly.
all looked up from our screen and went, oh man, where did the last 45 minutes of my life just go?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it as well. Like that's all stirred in here as well.
Yeah, brilliantly said. And that's a beautiful way to think about the knots, because it's both, it's the fact that it is designed to keep you hooked and wanting more. So there's that. And then there's, just in terms of young people, even at school, they're using screens. So even if you as the family and the parents say, oh, that's not the direction we want to go, a lot of times you don't get that choice when they're spending that many hours on their computer or their tablet during the day. And so it feels important that I help people sort this out, because it feels like it could be easily just swirling you and wobbling you and taking you on this ride that it doesn't need to be, because the truth is these are tools. And so I think of the technology as both tools, and there's so much that we get from them that's astounding. Like, I am not anti-technology at all. I'm all for it. And I'm also all for maybe just a smidge more like what it means to be a human and what are the qualities of humanness. And the thing I know about humans is that we consume food, we consume all sorts of things. And one of the things we consume is the information that we're getting from technology. And, the way we integrate and digest that really needs to be considered, so that we really recognize like, oh, I'm a human creature who can't be on all the time and can't take in endless. And so what does it mean to decide how I want to be in relationship with these devices and the things that they allow me to do?
Yeah, so you've got a 4-part course, Untangling Technology. And what we're going to be doing in this 4-part mini-series on the podcast is giving just a taste of that.
Yeah.
And I thought a great place to kind of lay a foundation of what's possible when we start to untangle technology, each of us for our own selves and our own kids and our own families, is kind of like this spirit of begin again. Like if we were all given a clean slate, like we could all start over and we hadn't already made a mess of our boundaries and our rules, and some got followed and some didn't. And we broke some of them ourselves. And like, I think a lot of us are wading through a lot of muck. If we could just kind of clean all that out and start again, well, what would that look like for you?
That's so exciting. I love that question. And I think, it's less about how it might look, but more about what are the tools that I would use to really consider. So let's just play the game of knowing that there's a level of like hooking us, that it is compelling. There's a lot that we gain from it. There's a lot that draws us in. And so where I always want to start is with one's self, and that idea of really starting to recognize, like, when I learn how to be more self-aware, when I turn toward me, when I learn to pause first and foremost. So that's always step one, is recognizing that really, unless it's a life or death situation, there is time to pause, and reminding myself, reminding the people I work with, and them reminding their people of like, we're going to take this a little slower. That, the minute we hear of some fabulous new thing, it doesn't mean we go headlong into it. And as parents, backing up and slowing down and first deciding like, what do I even value? Like, what am I going for here in this whole endeavor of parenting? Not even talking about the technology aspect, but like, what are the languages that I want to be speaking to these humans and around them and within myself, so that I have a level of clarity of like what matters. Like, it's so easy just to grab the device and go headlong into it. And yet now that we know that, if we were to pull back and wipe the slate clean, I think it would be like, a little bit of like a proceed with caution, or slow, the sign like slow children playing, like having that awareness of like, all right, let's really like, let's really like take a couple beats here and slow it down, so that we're not feeling as tumbled around in it. And so it would be first pausing, and then it would be really starting to recognize, like, how does this affect my system, so that the adult person has an awareness of like, oh, when I go on that particular app, I feel a little bit like yucky because I'm seeing these particular things, or I'm plugging into opinions that I don't necessarily need to give energy to. When I go over here, I feel elated. I feel nourished. I feel supported. I feel like, oh, I just got something from that. And so it's really creating a level of discernment around like, A, what am I going for? And then B, how do I know in the trial and error, in the experimenting, again, that's one of my big words, in the experimenting with it, what are the markers that allow me to decide like valuable or not valuable, like adding or taking? And then beyond that, communicating that. And I often talk about, and we'll talk about this a lot in the course, these creating value-based guidelines and boundaries, so that it's not just willy-nilly like, oh, just you need to get off of that. It's not good for you. It's like, we value health, so we're going to have times of the day where the screens go away because A, we need that as the adult people, and we want to give you the opportunity, young person, to have those experiences, because that's not necessarily being guided from out there. The devices are not asking you to put them down ever, really.
Never.
Right? And so I love the question, because it's like, I don't even think we're that far. I think once you stop and like just pull the scope back, when I say these things, you realize, oh yeah, right. Okay. It doesn't mean it's going to make it easier instantly, but it's going to put you on more of a steady footing, I think, or at least it's going to give you a little more of a empowerment around, oh, right, I do have more agency around this, and I do have more clarity of what we're really going for. And I just think the opportunity in all of this is, in a way, that you would be taking a stand for what you value and what you're attempting to go for with this team of a family that you're creating.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but there's a level, I heard this word, I love it so much, confidence, CALM, fidence. And I just think that's kind of the word that I imagine I could just like give every parent around this topic, is like, what would it mean to feel calm and confident around guiding your people around technology? And maybe you only have it once in a while, but what if that was one of the places you were heading toward? And the more you explored it and the more you found ways to find it, you realized a lot about yourself and about the relationships you're having.
Well, and I love that we're starting off in the next episode with that self-awareness piece, because I feel like so much, it feels like 90% of the job, right? The clarity, the calm, the confidence comes from when I just get with myself and say, okay, where am I at with this? What am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I believing? Yeah. So that's great. So we have a great road ahead. We're going to be talking about our own relationship with technology, our relationship with our each, individual child with technology, and then us as a family. So we've got these great 3 episodes ahead, and I just can't wait. I'm literally on the edge of my seat. Let's go.
Let's go.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Not Parenting. For any resources or offerings we spoke about in the episode, remember you can head to carrieconti.com, or you can click on the links in the episode show notes. Thanks for being here.